Hi, this video is looking at our overall skills and our overall focus for this unit of work. And that focus comes down to this one question you see on the screen in front of you right now. The question that we want to get our head around most in this unit is the extent to which, how much is this thing called the Anzac legend accurate in portraying the Australian experiences, all of them, of the Great War, the First World War, 1914 to 1918. To what extent is the Anzac legend concept an accurate, correct portrayal of Australian experiences, all of those experiences of all Australians in the First World War? So to do that, we've got to do a number of things, and the next slide will explore those for us. Okay, so I've already said this is the central focus of the unit. Now, if you're going to respond to that question in an exam that we haven't seen, that you and I haven't seen, you're going to need to have the following ideas, tips in mind. Firstly, you're going to need to have the skills and the confidence. Confidence is a big deal. To develop your own answer on the spot to questions related to that by reflecting and critically thinking. You need skills and confidence. You've been working on the skills in class by dealing with posters, primary sources. You've been grappling with information. We've done a practice paragraph. We've done an earlier paragraph. We need you to know you can do this, you can figure it out, and you will have an opinion. You might start forming an opinion at this stage of the course. You need to have a clear understanding, though, of some factual information, some concepts that are terms historians use. And the big one here, of course, is the concept of the Anzac legend. If you don't know what the Anzac legend is and how historians use that term in Australia, then you're not going to be able to realistically discuss how much, the extent to which it's accurate. If you don't know other things, you're not going to be able to do it either. For example, if you don't have an understanding of the full range, full diversity of Australian experiences during the war, then you won't be able to see the extent to which it's an accurate portrayal. Now, you need to do that, of course, at a grade 9 level. You can't do everything in great detail. But you will have to get your head around there's Gallipoli, there's the Western Front, there's what happened in Australia on the home front. And then we're going to think about, well, who does the Anzac legend include and who's left out and who's in it? Is it the full range and diversity of Australian experiences? So let's go through those. We need to have an understanding of the experiences at Gallipoli. You'll need to have an experience of the Anzacs and the Australian Imperial Force at the Western Front. You'll need to have an idea, an understanding to some extent of the experiences of those people left behind in Australia on what's called the home front. You'll need to have an idea of the experiences of the types of Australians who aren't usually included in the legend. Often, when we talk about the legend in more detail, you'll see it's the experiences of young white men fighting at Gallipoli. So what about the experiences of women during the First World War, including the women who went to the war? There were some. You could be forgiven for thinking they're not there. Children. What were kids doing during the war? If we're looking at the home front, what's going on in their world? Indigenous Australians. It's surprising to many Australians to find out just how many Australian Indigenous people wanted to go and fight and did go and fight. Just about all of the horses being broken for the light horse in Palestine during World War I were broken in by Indigenous soldiers. There are large numbers of records of Australians, Indigenous Australians, attempting to enlist and enlisting in the First World War. Many more than what we would immediately think of. The image of the white digger is true of many experiences, but there is exceptions that might not be being considered. And anyone else that might be left out. There are even Asian Australians, we shouldn't be surprised at this, who served in the AIF. but we never ever seem to see them represented in the posters and so on of the time. Another skill you're going to have to do this task well is you're going to need to be able to write a high quality peel or peep type structured historical paragraph under exam conditions. You'll probably have about 5 minutes perusal and about 40 minutes writing time. So you're going to have to see these sources and bam, go. You need to know. I start with a point. I elaborate on it, maybe use some definitions of terms. Then I'm going to use some evidence, and I want to use all the evidence from all those sources. Bam, 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 really quickly. Find what you need, move on. Tie it all together, proofread it, draft it, all in a little over half an hour. Now that's a challenge, so you need to practice, practice, practice. Think, think, think. Get it second nature. Okay, look at the advice you get on feedback of work where you've done paragraphs before and make it part of what you do. And you're needing to use unfamiliar source material, primary and secondary sources, to support your ideas. You need to be able to see into the sources quickly and use that information for a purpose. Okay, so before I wrap up this video, I thought I would revise again for you the concept of the Anzac Legend. So let's take a look. What's the Anzac Legend again? Well, firstly, it's a concept. It's a concept about Australian soldiers in the First World War. And it argues that they had shared, special, unique qualities that other soldiers of other armies didn't have. And that those characteristics, those qualities, those traits were revealed on the battlefield, especially at Gallipoli. Not Western Front, not Palestine, not on the home front. They were revealed at Gallipoli. The Anzac qualities are usually identified as the following 5, count them, 5 within the Anzac Legend. The first, endurance. The second, courage. The third, ingenuity. The fourth, good humour, a larrikin sense of humour. Mateship, loyalty, a bond of loyalty to each other as almost brothers. Now, according to this concept, the Anzacs were young men, often innocent in the ways of the world. That the world was opened up to them by the experience of the First World War. They were athletic and physically fit. They were stoic, they were brave, they were strong, unmoved in the face of hardship. And they had a particularly laid-back, laconic sense of humour. You often see the imagery of the wry smile and the cigarette hanging out of the corner of the mouth as they have a quiet chuckle at the difficulties of their world. And finally, in the Anzac Legends, this idea that the Anzacs were distrustful of authority, they were into equality, egalitarian, and they didn't like the British class differences of aristocrats, middle class, working class. They didn't like that. They thought every Aussie was the same. They were very conscious that they were different from other nations, especially the British. So revise those concepts, have a think through all those ideas.